Okay, so I have the honor today being joined by my favorite showrunner with three names, Lauren Schmidt Hissrich. Lauren, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
This was an interview I really wanted to do because to me, you're like a type of like rock star showrunner where I feel like a lot of showrunners kind of like hide in a cave somewhere. You don't really hear from them. You don't see them, but you see a lot of you, which I think is awesome because you show passion for a very passionate fan base for a show like The Witcher, and people want to see that, and I think that's so important. So you're not new to doing writing for, things with big fan bases already. So I was wondering, what is that like knowing that you're jumping and adapting in things that already have a huge fan base that expects so much, and now you're a showrunner for something like that, and you had previously written on Daredevil and Defenders and even Umbrella Academy. So I'm just wondering what kind of pressure that was and what goes into your head, like thinking about that.
I never try to think about it as pressure. I just think about it in terms of excitement. I mean, really the worst feeling in the world as a writer is to work on something that no one is ever going to watch. A lot of us go through that in pilot season every single year, which is writing something that will never, ever get made. And it's hard on the soul after a while. So to have the exact opposite experience, which is to write something that has this enormous, passionate fan base that we were hoping would show up and watch, The Witcher and hopefully like it. It's really, really exciting because you're writing something for people who are hungry for more material, who want more material. Now, of course, what that brings with it is knowing that you're not going to please all of those people. And it's been a really interesting 2 weeks since the show came out because obviously it's doing very well for Netflix around the world, which is super exciting. And it would be easy just to sort of start listening to the accolades. And what I've been trying to do is seek out the parts of the fandom that aren't as happy and to listen to what they were expecting to see and what they think could be better in season 2. It's been a really interesting thing to dig into and to sort of get all of the feedback and all of the accolades and all of the criticism and sort of start sifting through it.
See, I really respect you saying that because it really also just kind of lends to what you actually tweeted about a couple days ago, which I'm actually going to quote directly, where you said, "I've been thinking about echo chambers. Let's be honest, it's human nature to seek out the like-minded, to surround ourselves with those who see the world in the same way. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what is wrong? Lambasting those who aren't in your chamber. I say this as a person whose whole heart has been poured into this project for 2 years. No one should be degenerate for having an emotional and passionate response to The Witcher, negative or positive. Be kind to each other and be respectful." So that's really awesome to me as someone who also reviews things, and I think that's such a cool thing to hear from a showrunner, that you're able to even like listen to both sides of the argument and preach to people to be respectful of each other and not be so personal, and that's really cool of you. Now, when you're actually going on Twitter or Instagram and you see like The Witcher trending and people constantly talking about it everywhere, are you looking at everything, or is there like a healthy amount where you're like, I need a break from this?
There is definitely a healthy amount. What's really handy is to have family around me that is like, stop looking at your phone and come back to us.
Right.
It's actually what was brilliant about it coming out on December 20th is because I obviously was able to monitor a lot. I was getting some feedback from Netflix about how well it was doing, and the explosion of excitement on social media stunned even me. And there's been a lot of stuff on social media over the last 2 years. But no, you have to stop taking it in after a while, because also you find yourself sometimes becoming so minute about details. And I will end up arguing with a really passionate fan about one tiny thing. And you're like, okay, wait, let's step back and let's take a broader view. And what I try to do with those conversations is sort of take the 30,000 foot view. That's a phrase that we use in writing all the time, which is like, if you're just looking at the broad swipes from above, from 30,000 feet, what are they? And that allows me to say, you know what? People really liked Yennefer this season. They really thought that seeing her backstory was cool. That's been the majority of the response. It's not every response, but it's the majority. You know what other people felt, though, is that they didn't get to know Ciri enough. Okay, great. So I can take that piece of information and start making sure that season 2, we actually get to delve into that character a little bit more. To spend time arguing with a single person is never actually going to be helpful. It's really just trying to look at the big broad, views.
Yeah, and I think to add to the positives you were just saying, which I agree with everything you just said, but I think the biggest positive for me, and a lot of people would agree with this, is that Henry Cavill was the perfect casting choice for Garel. I think you guys nailed it with that, and I thought he was amazing, and I think that was the most important thing to get right. And I think having gotten that right is such a big success on its own. And just adding to it, like you said, it's got a lot of praise too, and how Netflix released this most popular TV shows of 2019, and Witcher was second, which is just incredible with Netflix being such a big juggernaut that you accomplished that. So props to you, Lauren. And I was wondering, so you're getting, so much success now. You see how a show, like, again, everyone's going to compare it to Game of Thrones, right? And it's like kind of like that thing. Everyone's trying to find their fix of fantasy. And this was something people were kind of looking for that as a thing. Was that kind of something you guys were aware of and conscious of when you were making the show? Like, was Game of Thrones talked about a lot?
It's something we were super aware of, that frankly, a lot of fans and a lot of press were making those connections. It's not something that we thought about on a daily basis on set, during writing, or in post. But we knew that those comparisons were going to be made, especially because when we started writing, Game of Thrones hadn't even premiered season 8 yet.
Okay.
They hadn't even premiered it. I think they were starting to roll it out right as we finished shooting. So we had no idea what fan reaction to it was going to be. I think only once it came out that people then started looking at the vacuum that it left and how to fill it. And then suddenly it was like, look, we've got this tailor-made show, The Witcher. The truth is, and obviously I think people now are finally beginning to realize this. The thing that Game of Thrones and Witcher have in common is that they're both fantasy shows. And they're both fantasy shows that we hope will find a big, broad audience. After that, they're not alike at all. And this has, I think, been the really interesting thing. I mean, tonally, they couldn't be more different. The Witcher is I would say, more magical. It has more monsters and magic and a lot more humor. If you come into it expecting a big, earnest, sweeping drama, that's not what you're going to get. So I do think that now that it's out, that distinction actually won't be made as often, because people actually know now they have both pieces of material to compare.
Yeah, and that thing too, where like you want to have it separate on its own, and that's what was so good about Witcher 2, is it is so great on its own with that, like putting out of your head the comparisons. And now as an actual business side of it, Lauren, you see like basically the zeitgeist is that, Game of Thrones objectively didn't stick the landing that great. Do you toss and turn at night thinking, wow, this is a huge project I'm showrunning in The Witcher, it has a huge fan base. What if I mess up the end? Like, do you guys have like a long game plan with this? Do those thoughts come to your head?
I mean, of course they come to your head because, we all are constantly, as a writer, you are in your brain so often anyway. And, you're always thinking about, oh God, what if I mess something up? The truth is, though, our plan is pretty solid. And not that means that we know everything we're going to do over the next, 2 or 3 or 7 or 20 years. What I mean is we have the books. I don't feel the need to go beyond the existing books. They are great source material. Andrew Sapkowski has written all of them. There is a natural ending to them. And I feel like as long as we stick that landing, which is the ending of the books, then we'll be good.
Okay, that's really good to hear. And also, I noticed that you have such a great, diverse, and female-heavy writing team. Was that something you went into conscious of trying to make that happen, or did it just kind of happen on its own?
No, you're always conscious of the makeup of a writer's room. And it's interesting. I love that you use the word diverse, because it's one of those words that is obviously such a hot-button word, because people always assume it means skin color.
Sure.
And what I like to talk about is the diversity of a writer's room in terms of many, many factors. So yes, we have a fairly equal split of men and women in our show. We also have people who are older, people in their 50s, people in their 20s. We make sure that we have different sort of life experiences. We also make sure that we have people who were born in the United States, people who were born in Europe, people who were born in Eastern Europe. We want to make sure that we have different families, and this goes to sort of sexuality, of course, but also, people who still live close to their family of origin, or people who were adopted. It really is about diverse experiences, because what you ask any writer's room to do is to bring their own life to the story, to bring their own emotional context to the story. That's how it is ever going to resonate with an audience. So we need to make sure that if we're asking people to have context and to have emotional resonance, that their experiences are different, or else the show's going to be really one note and really bland. So yeah, it is very purposeful. but it's purposeful on a lot of factors, not just the color of someone's skin.
So running on that too with your writer's room, just to wrap this all up, I had to ask this too, is now that you're a showrunner here and you've had so much writing experience, just way back even going to West Wing, which is another great written show, do you, as a showrunner, you wrote for Witcher episode 1 and the finale as well, which are great, but do you sit there and also, like, are you hands-on with all the other episodes too? Are you kind of showrunner who's with the writers every day in that writer's room, or do you kind of check in and out?
No, I love to be with them every single day. It was interesting. Season 2 was a little bit more difficult because we were still shooting season 1. So I was actually splitting my time between being in production and being in the writer's room. But for season 1, I was there every day. Here's the important thing, though, is that I believe that writers should write. I don't expect them to all try to sound like me, and I certainly, for God's sake, I do not want to rewrite all of their words.
Right.
That is not a good use of their time or my time.
Yeah.
So what I really do is empower writers to write their own episodes. I will often do a polish on them at the end if anything needs shifted. A lot of times that polish is about continuity between episodes as opposed to making individual changes within the episode itself. But I really want the episodes to represent the writer who wrote them. And I think that's part of what makes season 1 so special, is that you can kind of get a sense of the writer behind the show. So if you watch episode 3, for instance, which was written by Beau DeMaio, Beau has spent a lot of time writing a lot of monsters and horror. And that's the thing that really rises to the surface in that episode. What I loved about episode 6, which was written by a writer named Haley Hall, it's a lot more of a sort of romantic adventure, which is right up Haley's alley. So allowing the writers to really own their scripts and own their episodes, the episodes become that much more rich because they have the tone of the writer themselves.
Yeah, that's, wow, beautifully said. And Lauren, just to wrap things up, I have to ask this or it would be a sin, but is there anything you can give us to expect for season 2?
You know what, Steve? It is, I can give you some generals to expect.
Okay.
Which is, our characters will all start interacting a lot more. Season 1 kept, for the most part, Yennefer, Geralt, and Ciri very separate. In season 2, we'll start to bring them all together. This is really going to be the foundation of the 3 of them as a family. It's not always going to go well. They're not going to be a really happy family from the beginning. They have a lot to learn about each other. They're strangers, and they have to start learning what they mean to each other, how they can help each other, and when to leave the others alone. I think it's going to be fun because it really is getting into this dynamic of a family of choice, the family that you choose to be with. And those are the stories I'm most excited to start telling.
That is awesome. I cannot wait. It's just amazing how fun and exciting it is to watch Witcher season 1. And the last thing, Lauren, I was just going to ask, I saw that you had this fundraiser on your Instagram that you did during the holiday season where you raised, it seems like $50,000 to help, I guess, kids get gifts and stuff, Team Progress. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that and what exactly went on there?
Sure. So this is something that we've been doing for 9 years. My oldest son, Harry, was born 5 weeks early and ended up in the pediatric intensive care unit, the NICU. And truthfully, his life was saved. And he's a happy, healthy 9-year-old boy today. And so the very first Christmas after he was born, we started talking about what we could do to give back to the hospital. And the very first year, myself, my husband, and my best friend, Michelle, went and bought a bunch of toys and delivered them to the hospital just for any kids who happened to be there over the holidays. And some of our friends saw what we were doing and said, oh, hey, can I give you $10 and have you buy something for me too? Or I'll write you a $50 check. I'd love to pitch in. And so in the second year, we decided to formalize it a little bit more. And we started, basically an online fundraising campaign. And to date, we've raised, I believe it's almost $300,000 at this point for kids. And of course, we've raised so much money and bought so many toys over the years that we now have extended to 5 other organizations in Burbank, California, where this hospital is, to make sure that we're taking joy not just to the hospital, but to other kids in the area who need it. And the best part of it, honestly, is that it's all grassroots. It is literally myself and Michelle and Mike sending out emails to our friends saying, hey, if you want to join, if you want to donate money, if you want to come shop, we do all of the shopping ourselves. If you want to load or unload toys from vans or put them in the hospital, we'll take any help we can get. And it truly has become the the best part of our year. And it's amazing how big it's grown.
That's amazing. That's something to just be applauded. That makes you just even cooler than you already are, Lauren. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you wanted to plug before you head out?
Nope. I think we covered it all.
Yeah, I hope so. And if you're listening to this and for some reason you haven't watched The Witcher, watch it. And not only watch The Witcher, you can go on Netflix. You can have a Lauren Schmidt Hissrich binge and watch her episodes of Daredevil, Umbrella Academy she wrote, so much The Defenders. It's all great stuff. Lauren, thank you so much again for joining me, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.